Hello, everyone, and welcome to Jump Up Supercast, the only podcast on the internet where we're utilizing the new ray tracing thing. I don't know what it actually does. I'm your host, Will. Joining me today, Brandon.
Oh, tailspin.
Noah.
I have no idea what you were talking about earlier, but okay.
And Muzamil.
Since Saf usually goes last, I feel like I have to swear in this spot.
So that we immediately get in trouble for not having the explicit rating on iTunes. Thank you. So the brief mention of ray tracing there is all we're going to talk about the new graphics cards because we all don't know what it means for this podcast.
I'm so hype.
But
graphics card.
The graphics cards, them graphics. I don't know what it means, but they look nice. But I'm back, everybody. Hi. Hello. I was gone last week.
Yes.
Were you?
He's
We
alive.
found our will to survive. Our will is
Oh, boy. I have to say, I listened to the last week's podcast without, right? Of course, when Muzamil was doing the hosting, deeply terrified of what could happen. It was going so well. It was going so well until like that 45-minute mark, and then boy, oh boy, this is why we... It all got wild real fast.
There's a reason we need an odd number for the list. Okay,
It is true.
I mean, that's a reason, but I think it was very entertaining.
It was.
at the very-
It wasn't entertaining while I was a part of it. Let me tell you, I was deeply
It
upset.
was entertaining.
So I think it's been settled
fine.
though, right? We've settled it officially. Fire Emblem Awakening is below Valkyria Chronicles.
No, that's not what happened.
Deep shame.
Yeah, it is. Fire Emblem
We'll get to it. We'll get to it when we get to the list. But
Okay.
below Valkyria Chronicles. What do you mean? What? No.
Wait.
I'm so confused now.
no, what were you saying?
I said Fire Emblem Awakening is below
Fire
Valkyria
Emblem
Chronicles.
Awakening.
It's below. Yeah.
Yeah. That's what I said.
I was just so assumed that you were going to troll me that I just thought you were going to put Fire Emblem.
Wow, just assume the worst in people. I don't.
Yeah, the Twitter poll and I both agree we're gonna put Valkyria Chronicles over Fire Emblem Awakening. I was at a place with no service.
I don't
come
respect
back.
Will, but I do respect the people. So
Wow.
Yeah. Same.
I was at a place with no service. I come out. I get a text that I know is late, and it's Moose saying Valkyria Chronicles or Fire Emblem. And I say, oh, this is too late. So I ask him
actually,
what
the
they settled
specific
on.
text was "Gun to your head, Valkyria Chronicles or Fire Emblem Awakening."
That was correct. It was going in my head because I like both games. But I asked, well, how did you settle it? And he goes, oh, we didn't. We just put it up to a Twitter poll. And that happened. I was shocked. All right, the sanctity of the list, is it canon? It still is canon because everything's okay.
It is.
But
And we value our listeners' opinions.
Yeah.
They count just as much as we do.
except for the part where we haven't done this for the 30 weeks prior, but you know what? I agree, Brandon.
Well, that's why we have them there. There are.
We've never had an emergency like this before.
Truly,
That's the thing. We did have a couple of times where we can't decide. We were really split, but in the end, somebody would give up because we were going too long for the podcast.
yes. There have been times
someone would
that you've
give
heard
in.
one of us just acquiesce, just be like, you know what, it's fine. We have to end this podcast. This was who knew it would be these two games where we drew the line.
Yeah. This time we were like, no, that's it, no more.
And you know what? And I'm a man of the people, and I believe that the people need their voices to be heard just as much as our stupid voices are heard every week on this podcast.
Yes, that's why every week we'll be having one fan on the podcast. That's not what we're doing.
No.
That'd be truly an awful
Don't
idea.
get too excited.
But we are back, boys, and guess what we had this week to help me be back? We had a real
GamesCom.
treat, GamesCom. Brandon, how'd you know? Look at this guy keeping up with the news. What a cool guy. Gamescom is weird now, right? Because, I don't know about you guys. No, it might be different for you because you were living in Europe. But, I was made aware of Gamescom, 3 or 4, 5 years ago, probably, right? Towards around when this generation started. Mm-hmm. It's now straight up, it's like E3 Part 2. Especially this year, it was E3 Part 2. Not necessarily in the, announcement side of things, because there was a couple games announced. There was a couple things we can get to. But just in the follow-up. There was so much that we got announced at E3 and we saw gameplay for the first time at Gamescom, which is always exciting, seeing the actual game part of the games that we've been playing. And I would say, arguably, I guess we can, people will have things that they prefer. But the two biggest ones I saw was that we got gameplay reveals, nice 15-minute long chunks for Sekiro, Shadows Die Twice, the new game by From Software, which we saw at Microsoft's E3. And we saw gameplay for Devil May Cry 5, which are both two games we also got release dates for. Both coming out in March 2019. Mm-hmm. So suddenly a whole lot happened this week, and suddenly Q1 2019 is looking fierce, scary. But did any of you watch either of these two, the trailers for them or the gameplay?
I did, and I did both look freaking fantastic, I gotta say. Oh,
that's like, go ahead.
Devil May Cry 5, that trailer, just the end of it with Dante with his bike, I'm just like, I need this game now. It
is very good. For those of you who've not seen it, don't want to ruin it. I mean, I hate to ruin it for you, but pause it now, go watch the trailer if you don't want to hear. The end, you see Nero, he's doing cool stuff. There's a part where he pops his arm off and hops on it and rides it like a skateboard and does an ollie on his rocket arm. It's really great. And then you see Dante on the bike, like we saw at the end of the E3 trailer. He hits a guy with the bike, and then the bike splits up, and it becomes two clubs that he runs the tread on a guy's face, and then puts it back together to continue a combo. So the bike is a weapon in Devil May Cry 5, and it looks very good. And if you haven't watched Sekiro, don't know how you're supposed to say that one. I would recommend looking at that one, because we know what From Software is. They've made Souls-like games up to this point, right? Dark Souls 1 through 3, Bloodborne. And we had sort of the idea how much is this like those Souls games? Sekiro is a straight-up action game. It is.
This is different.
You got to be parrying. You got to be dodging. You cannot spam the dodge. But it has that world design and the combat design that is still good in From Software games. So those are both just exciting. Noah, you got to see new gameplay for Resident Evil 2.
Yeah.
How did this continue the excitement?
Oh yeah, we got to see Claire fight William Birkin. He looked pretty fucking sweet.
That's man, because I watched it and I like the old Resident Evil games a whole lot, and just we said it before, but it's perfect. It's so it's really hard to find an issue with this game right now. It's crazy. We don't get these very often in terms of remakes. People are mad at the kangaroo.
A new thing that I noticed. I don't know if it was. I didn't notice if it was a action prompt like it had in Resident Evil 4, where if you get grabbed, you tap a button and something you can get away from the grip, or if it was the same mechanic from Resident Evil 1 where you have defense items. Mm-hmm. It's when Claire got grabbed by William, at one point she threw a grenade behind him to stun him so he would drop her. I don't know if that was a prompt like Resident Evil 4 or again automatic like Resident Evil 1. So I'm kind of interested in seeing what's going on there.
Yeah, that is neat. Wow. I didn't notice that. Good eye. So those, and I guess we should mention also we're just running down Gamescom stuff. We got some dates for some games, like I said, we did for Devil May Cry 5 and for Sekiro. We also got a date for Shenmue 3 and a trailer. Mark your calendars. It's almost exactly a year away.
I feel like I should be super excited about Shenmue 3, but I never played the games, even though I always wanted to. So I'm kind of have excitement.
1 and 2 just came out remastered, so I guess.
I just purchased them, actually.
Shenmue I don't know why you did, because you're not going to like those games.
And I'm going to play them, and I'm going to reveal the truth about them on the list.
God.
Oh boy, here we go. By adding them to the list. No.
Oh no, that will be a rough one for Will. Oh no. But yeah, so it's pretty wild that they're just straight up, here's an exact date a year off, but
I feel like that's kind of okay, especially with a game that's constantly being delayed like this one. I don't know, giving it a date a year out is kind of I don't really believe them to stick to it, I don't know. It's a little weird, but
yeah,
whatever.
I think it's good to give the date just so it gives people expectations to think about a little bit,
Sure, and then you're just going to...
Because if it's 2019, there's going to be is it first half, second half, and if it doesn't hit first half, people are going to be disappointed, so just being out ahead of the curve expect it.
But then you delay it out from the hard date. That's much worse, isn't it? It's like, oh.
Well, I mean, they might. We don't know if they will yet. That's still
but they
a
probably
TBD
will.
thing. Probably. But that also it's a weird because like we are now experiencing like because we keep saying to like developers like, hey man, why just delay the game, let it be good, and then like people are being like, I paid for this game 4 years ago, what's going on with the Kickstarter campaign. And so it's funny with especially Kickstarter to see how like
people are realizing that this is what happens in game development.
Yeah. You're like, where's the payback for the thing for the money I put in? But for the investors, it's just actual money instead of the game they want to play. But we also got just a weird thing. We got, because we saw back when the Switch was revealed, right? We saw a thing for Volition. A little logo. We said, oh, that's the Saints Row people, Agents of Mayhem people. Wonder what we're going to get on Switch from them. We're getting a Saints Row game. It's Saints Row 3.
That's so... This is like the most baffling announcement I've seen. And like, so usually
very
like...
random.
Right? And like, you would think, okay, like... for example, what I'm trying to think of a game that got... L.A. Noire, right? That game coming to Switch, but also because it's getting remastered to PS4 and Xbox One, right? This is only coming to Switch. Like they're not this is not like we're remastering on PS4 and Xbox One, let's just throw it on Switch. No, like this is the first time they're porting this game to the current gen consoles, and it's only on Switch. What a weird thing.
Yeah, because like that was what surprised me, because I thought, well, okay, there's probably Saints Row 3 on PS4 and Xbox One. There's not.
Yeah. No.
Saints Row 4 is on both of them. So you say, well, maybe it's a thing where Saints Row 4 can't run on... But no, both Saints Row 4 came out on 360 and PS3.
Yes.
So I don't know.
It's so, yeah, it feels very... Like, you would think, like, if they were going to do that, they would do, like, here comes Saints Row 3 and 4 are being released on the Switch, right?
Yeah.
Like,
well, I think the general perception...
the better one.
Yeah, I think I was gonna say, right? Like, I think most people agree that Saints Row 3 is probably the best in that series, right?
Yeah, it is. It's the best in the series, because it's where the series really... I mean, it always had, like, a humorous side, right? It was like Grand Theft Auto, but took itself even less serious. But then with 3, they, like, fucking just upped it to a 12, you know? They were like,
right.
You know what? People, you know, we tried to stick close to our Grand Theft Auto, like, roots, but let's, like, just say fuck it, right? Let's just make this game batshit crazy, just over the top.
Make it a farce.
Yeah, and they did, and people loved it. And then with 4, they kind of made it like Crackdown instead of Grand Theft Auto. Like, everybody had, like, superpowers. You could jump over buildings and stuff. Yeah. But that kind of took away from, you know what... the weird thing about the whole Saints Row 4 thing is a weird story in itself. It was going to be a DLC for the third game, but they were like, ooh, we like this superpower stuff, so they just made it into a sequel. So, yeah, I don't know. It's weird. But, yeah, Saints Row 3, best in the series, but still very odd that it would, like, you know, why would they do that? You know, kind of like... take a step back and release a prior one on a newer console.
It's
I mean, I guess maybe strange. The thought might be that the market is full from Saints Row 4. Like, there's just Saints Row 4 has been on so many things, and it's been so heavily discounted that, like, charging a full price version on Switch would, like, maybe not be a thing.
I think I'm just mostly baffled that this isn't on PS4 and Xbox One.
Yeah, that is the other crazy thing. And, like, maybe it'll come later, but...
Yeah. Like, what a weird thing. I mean, like, if the price is right, I might be into it, because, I mean, there's this clamoring for GTA 5 on Switch. This is not GTA 5, but, Paladins, just like Paladins isn't Overwatch, but, it's satisfying people's itch on Switch, so, maybe the same kind of thing going on here.
I mean, we already had Lego City Undercover, and now we have this. We got all the GTA clones.
We also had at this Gamescom, we had... This might be part 1 of a part 2. We might talk more about some of this stuff next week. But they had a Nintendo Indies Highlights, which is sort of the European version of the, like, Nindies presentations that they do. We're going to get a Nindies presentation in tomorrow, I think, when this podcast is uploaded. But we got a couple of announcements on here that are cool and exciting. One that, like, lit me up a whole lot that I didn't see a lot of people talk about, so I just want to mention it. The Monster Boy game. Last year, about June, probably summertime, Monster Boy was a game that came out on the Switch relatively early on, and it was a
Wonder Boy.
Wonder Boy.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, are you sure?
Yeah. Okay. So let me explain this. So I forget what the original game's name is, but it's like Wonder Boy 3 something whatever, right? And it's this pretty like cult classic hit, right? A lot of people have nostalgia for that game. And then
Master System game, I think.
It's on the Master System. And for whatever reason, two separate developers decided around the same time, hey, we want to remake this game. And so last year we got Wonder Boy and the Dragon's Trap, came out last April. Yep. And so this is the other developer's take on this game. And like, so these actually aren't related. They're remaking the same game. But it's not
Wonder Boy.
But
it's Monster Boy.
So yeah, they call it Monster Boy. Now both of these, and I think it's because the original series had like a lot of different names, like in its incarnations. But for whatever reason, like Sega gave both of these guys permission to be like, you know what, go ahead, remake this game. And yeah,
but isn't this a new game?
So kind of like
it's a spiritual successor. Was the way that I saw it pitched.
It's it's not as much of a remake as the other guys' take on it. Wonder Boy.
Yeah, I mean the last. If you look at Wonder Boy, there's it does the Halo thing where you press the button and it switches to the old graphics, then to the new graphics. Yeah.
So I think this one is a little bit more new, but it is still based off Wonder Boy 3 or whatever. I don't remember the exact title of the game. Sorry, but like these are two separate developers, like wholly unrelated. Just to be clear,
we should probably say the premise of the game is a side scroller where you can transform into different animals, and so it sort of has a Metroidvania element where you'll get new transformations that can go to new places with it. You can be like a lion, a pig, a frog, a snake, and so just watch that trailer. They did like a Saturday morning cartoon like theme song for it, which is super cute and charming. The game has it has very much like a Saturday morning cartoon aesthetic to it, which was neat. The other like big game announcement that was announced at
quick correction. So the original game is Wonder Boy 3: The Dragon's Trap, right? This was on the it was on the Master System, right? And then Wonder Boy: The Dragon's Trap is a remake made by Lizard Cube, okay? And they got Sega's blessing, and they worked with the original creator. His name is Nishizawa, okay? But then these other guys are making a spiritual successor called Monster Boy and the Cursed Kingdom. However, these guys did not get permission from Sega, but they are also working with the original creator on this project.
So it's not a remake then. It's a new game.
It's a new game. Yeah.
Okay, heavily inspired by, but a new game.
And it has the blessing of the original creator. So
I'll be honest with you. Well, I thought this would be like a 10-second plug. This has become an investigative report. So thank you.
It's wild.
But the other thing that has sort of a Saturday morning cartoon aesthetic, we got Windjammers 2.
Windjammers 2. Who saw this one coming? I mean, first of all,
was a meme.
Yeah. Honestly, like this game is a meme.
If you don't know what this is, the Giant Bomb guy sort of popularized it. There was some other people that also played it beforehand, but it's a arcade game. It was also on the TurboGrafx. And it was back in the 90s, and it's a frisbee. You get a frisbee, you throw the frisbee. If you miss it, it hits the back wall, you score a point, right? I really had perspective, but it gets intense. There's mind games, there's super moves, there's like character stats. A lot's happening.
I played the PS4 version. That was my first experience with that game, and it's actually a lot of fun. Like, to be fair, like we
played it together.
Yeah, I totally understand why this game has such a cult following. You know, but so the original port was PS4 exclusive, though, right? Or maybe on PC as well.
Yeah, PS4 PC.
Yeah, and now this one's a Switch exclusive, which is
there's no other announced platforms, so who knows? Very weird.
I know Xavier Woods is big into Windjammers.
Yeah, Well, he's friends with the Giant Bomb guy, so that probably makes sense how he got turned on to it. So it's just it's spread like a virus, and now it's getting. We'll see if the meme can pay off in financial returns. But they had a cute animated trailer for it, which is nice. But then, so that's sort of, I would say, the one other announcement I want to get to from Gamescom directly. We got an announcement from I forget the name. I was about to say Don't Nod, which is not correct. That is the Life is Strange people. Supermassive, I think.
Supermassive Games.
Until Dawn people.
Yes.
I was aware of this, but I didn't put it together in my brain. They put out 3 games in the last year, which is crazy. Because they did
the VR Until Dawn.
They did the VR Until Dawn game. They did The Inpatient, which was like a pseudo follow-up to Until Dawn, which was also VR. They did the game where you play on your phone and you're like a cop trying to solve a murder.
And The Inpatient...
Oh, is that PlayStation game?
Yeah.
The one... what do they call those games? The ones where you use your phone.
You use your phone and you make the decisions as a group by pressing the choice on your phone.
Yeah, I thought about buying that, but I thought, what's this replayability? Right? Yeah. So I didn't end up doing it.
So I guess before we talk about the game itself, though, so this is a successor in a way to Until Dawn, right? As far as I can tell?
So what it is sort of... So Until Dawn happened. It's clearly in the style of slasher horror movies, right?
Yeah.
It was a success. And so basically they're sort of pitched with this one is that they're sort of going back to more directly to the Until Dawn approach, but they're presenting it as the game is called The Dark Pictures Man of Medan. Which is the Dark Pictures is the thing that comes first, and essentially, you know how there's the Twilight Zone or Black Mirror or Tales from the Crypts, right? Horror anthologies.
Yeah, right.
So they're not
tell different horror stories.
Yeah.
They're not necessarily all linked together, but they kind of they're different. The one story could be about zombies, and the next story could be about ghouls or ghosts. You know, so yeah.
And so that's sort of their pitch with this game. It'll be the first in this anthology. They sort of made it seem like it'd be a little bit shorter than Until Dawn, which I'm okay with. I think that Until Dawn's a game that's sort of like a movie. It's really good to have in one sitting, but it's 8 hours. So if you want to have a group of friends,
I beat that game twice.
No, yeah, it was pretty short actually.
I mean, I think that 3 to 4 hours is good for this type of game. I think that that's fine.
I think that's maybe
not for $60.
But no, I think they're going to position it as not as a $60 product. I think is the other thing too.
Then maybe.
The trailer looks good. I saw the trailer.
If you want to look at it, you can describe it, Brandon.
Yeah, well, it looks like it is really in the same engine, almost even as Until Dawn. It uses real actors, their exact likeness, almost. Mm-hmm. I recognize a couple of them, but I don't know their names off the top of my head. But that's not important. So yeah, it looks like it uses kind of the same game engine. The game looks like it takes place on a boat, and there's creepy monsters that are kind of attacking these people that are stuck out in the ocean in a storm. And also, I don't know if you were going to mention this, but this game's coming out on Xbox and PlayStation 4 and PC. Say,
this is their first
just a PlayStation exclusive. Yeah, it's their first outside of PlayStation, isn't it?
So I think,
since a 2011 game that they made. Yeah. So it's been a while.
I have a takeaway from this, right? And that's
okay.
I feel like Sony really kind of mismanaged Supermassive and their partnership with them. Because Until Dawn, was a surprise hit, right? No one really saw it coming. It was kind of quiet up until its release. Yeah, it had that really good PSX showing, which I think really helped. But I think it was pretty quiet until it came out, right? And then just kind of exploded, right? And after Until Dawn, though, Sony stuck them on VR games and games that use to go with their new phone thing that they were trying to do, right?
Yeah, they used them to sell gimmicks in some ways,
right? Whereas this Dark Pictures anthology is this is what people wanted as a follow up to Until Dawn, I think. So I don't know. I feel like it kind of says something that Supermassive felt the need to. Make the same thing essentially, but they had to go to a different partner to do that. I think it kind of says something about.
I was also just surprised Sony didn't put a ring on it. I was really like, I thought that would have been a one where like, if
yeah, it's like they really should have, you know, this is something that should have, like, I think it would have been a big bolster to like the PlayStation library, you know, like having more games like this, and you know, it's kind of a loss for Sony that they're not that they didn't follow up properly.
Yeah, I mean, it almost kind of reminds me of, to a lesser extent, and obviously they didn't lose the company, but kind of with Microsoft originally, what they fucked up with Rare, with hey Rare, do you want to, like, we're gonna use you to bolster our Connect shit,
yeah,
and also I think they stuck them on like Avatar duty for a while on the 360, and then Connect stuff, and like they weren't utilizing them. They were just trying to, you know, push them to promote their own like kind of dumb side gimmicky stuff.
Yeah. So I mean, I don't know. Good for Supermassive though that they were able to, you know, make this new series.
Yeah.
I hope it works out for them, you know. But yeah,
game looks nice, and if it, you know, Until Dawn was a beautiful game, and if this game looks as good as Until Dawn running on the Xbox One X, I'm in.
Yeah, and like it's also, I just like the anthology thing so much, right? Because there's sort of like, I think if they did it Until Dawn 2, like that could work, right? But it's sort of like you can only do the slasher thing so many times, you know, before you enter. You like Friday the 13th. By the fifth movie, Jason's on a boat and then in space, you know.
I mean, the slasher thing also became another thing. Spoiler alert! Halfway through the game,
it's
I
true.
won't get into it,
but yeah, but I like that. Like they can sort of say, like, okay, well, this like the boat, like this type of story. There's like a ghost ship that you sort of see at the end. Like we'll put all of our ideas about this into this game, and then we can move on to another horror thing.
I like that a lot. They're gonna tackle all the horror tropes.
Yeah,
which I mean, Until Dawn tackled a decent amount of them in one game. But I like the idea of visiting different horror genres, but in like the same kind of like series of games.
It's sort of what the idea for the Halloween movies were. Like originally the plan was to go like 1 is about slashers, 2 is about witches, 3 is about whatever. But then everyone knew Michael Myers too much. So like, I mean, I liked the idea back then. I like the idea now. So that's cool. Speaking of though, Brandon, you mentioned Microsoft and the whole and their stuff with Rare. There was a conversation that was had with, I forget who it was. It was a Microsoft guy from Europe, Xbox guy from Europe, talking about their acquiring of the 5 studios back at E3. And he talked a little bit more about their initiatives and their plans with it. And they said that they plan to acquire more studios in the future, relatively soon, so however much that means. But that they were looking for studios that were around 50 to 100 people, which I think is interesting, right? Because I think that it shows a smart approach by Microsoft, right? Because I think that like when you acquire someone like Rare, when you know, I don't know really the last time we had a big, like we've acquired this company on stage, like that hasn't happened in E3 in more recent years. But I think that like that's a very showy moment, you know, like look at us, we did it. But I think that like for the health of your console, I think this is a very smart move because it's, you know, 50 to 100 people doesn't make a AAA game. It makes AA games, right? It makes games that like are big but aren't huge. Games like State of Decay, you know, which does
games
well
like Until Dawn.
Yeah. And so I think that just that is a good indicator for their mentality coming to the next generation. I guess I'll ask this of you, Moose. Sort of, with Microsoft doing this, they're acquiring studios now rather than, you know, later. When do you expect to see this start paying off? Do you think that we'll see this type of stuff come to fruition by the time the next console runs around? Do we have to wait a little bit longer than that?
So that's a great question. And so with Ninja Theory specifically, right? Which they had recently bought and kind of like spearheaded, I think, this kind of discussion, right? They just finished a game, you know, not too long ago. What is it? Senua's Sacrifice. I forgot the Hellblade, right? There
it's
you go.
Hellblade, yeah.
Hellblade. And, you know, games do take a while to make, even these AA, you know, as actually, it's funny, as Ninja Theory themselves like to call it, AAA indie, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah. These games still do take a while to make, though, you know? So I think with all these initiatives that Microsoft's doing, because they did just start up a new studio in Santa Monica, which I don't know if you read, but like they're apparently making pretty big hires for that Santa Monica studio. I don't remember what it's called. but whatever.
Yeah, I do too. I know what you're talking about, though. Yeah.
I think we'll start seeing this pay off like in the early 2020, like 2020, 2021, in that kind of range. So probably like maybe like 1, 2, or 3 years after the next console launches, depending on whenever they decide to do that. But like, don't expect it like definitely not next year, and probably not 2020.
Yeah.
But like sometime after 2020, I would say like that's about when it's gonna pay off, probably, because it is a lot, like they're acquiring, like Playground. Is room. They started up a whole new studio, and are rumored to be making Fable, right? Which I think we talked about in this very podcast at some point. And so you add that, you add Ninja Theory's next game, you add the Santa Monica game, like on top of your usual Gears, Forza, Halo, and whatever Rare wants to do. Like I think we're going to next gen. Like we're really going to see like Microsoft Studios. I think is going to be a pretty big deal next gen, to the likes that we haven't really seen since like the early 360 days, right?
Yeah. And I think that's part of it, too, is that, like, Microsoft has AAA franchises, right? It's just a lot of those franchises sort of have been slightly mismanaged with time, right? But, like, Gears, Forza, Halo, the problem wasn't that necessarily with Gears, Forza, and Halo, it was that there wasn't other things backing those.
Right, because when those three things were new, it was like, holy shit, right?
Yeah, it's like, these are all huge new franchises, but...
Yeah, especially because Forza and... I think both Forza and Gears started on the 360, right? Or did Forza start a little bit earlier? Yeah, so like, those are two big franchises that they started up last gen. And if you look at actually Microsoft Studios as a publisher, in the early 360 days, like, they were doing a lot, They were trying a lot of things. They were, securing Japanese games, like, just the whole
Blue Dragon's always the one I think of, right?
Blue Dragon and Lost Odyssey, So I think... I don't know if they'll go and, do crazy things like Lost Odyssey again, but, I do think, like, next gen is going to be really interesting for Microsoft, just as a software publisher, I think it's a really exciting future we have there.
But, so they're trying to hit the software end. They're trying to build that up. Microsoft, we've got reports that are basically confirmed at this point. They're also doing a pretty wild thing on the hardware end of things. Excuse me. There's a new subscription service called Xbox All Access that's coming. And when I first heard that, I thought, oh, maybe they're just packaging Game Pass and Gold together. And they kind of are, but there's one other thing they're throwing in there. What is the other thing they're throwing in there, Brandon?
They're throwing in an actual goddamn console.
They are throwing in an Xbox. For $22 a month is the reported price for an Xbox One X, $35 a month for a Xbox One X. You get a Game Pass, you get Xbox Live Gold, and you get a Xbox, like I said, depending on the price point that you want to hit, for the month. And you can just re-up the next month to keep it. But two things that happened to me when I read this. One, I got Blockbuster flashbacks. Because this is just like a Blockbuster like Blockbuster used to rent consoles, for the weekend. This is a much better deal than that, to be honest. But the other thing is that this is another way that their investment in Game Pass is paying off in a way that we didn't foresee. Right?
Yeah.
Like, I think
sorry, go on.
Sorry.
Okay.
No.
I mean, it's kind of like... You have a pretty low barrier of entry now, right? We talked about this a lot with the streaming console, which I think especially it'll be interesting to pair this service with that console, right? But, basically nothing down, right? You just have to pay a monthly subscription to Game Pass, to Live, and then until you pay it off the console, right? For this pretty low price, you get access to over 100 games on Game Pass, right? You can play online with Xbox Live Gold. You get those games with Gold, right? Like, Xbox is really positioning themselves as like a very good console for lower budget families, right? Because I mean, you get the whole because it was already kind of crazy just with Game Pass alone. But then when you throw in the console with this, like, this is a fantastic entry point console now.
Like,
you know?
Yeah,
like
they weren't kidding when they said they were going for the subscription service.
Yeah. I mean, and like, it's crazy because if you look at, like, because Game Pass is $10 a month. The Xbox Live Gold translates to roughly $5 a month if you get the year. So this is essentially $6 a month to have a console in your house.
Yeah, and even then, you're only paying that till you pay off the console.
Until you pay off the console. That is the crazy thing. Like, and the other thing that's nice is that the value proposition gets better as it goes on because, like, they just added Master Chief Collection to Game Pass this week. That was part of their Gamescom announcement, right?
Yeah.
The week before, we mentioned that Doom and Rage just got added, right? Like, that there's just these low-key constant additions. They had a bunch at E3.
And that's not even to mention, right? Like, every brand new Microsoft Studios game, which we're talking about how they're bolstering up their first-party lineup, all of those games are going to be available on Game Pass day one. Mm-hmm. That's crazy, you know? So, like, for a lower budget family, like, that's all you need. You don't even need to buy games at that point, right? like if you're playing other games that are on Game Pass, you probably, like you said, like, it'll take a year. You know, it'll take, like, if you're not gaming every single day and putting, like, you know, tons of hours in, that'll last you forever, like a super long time.
There's a lot of really good games on there.
Yeah. And it's funny because it is sort of like, this story is almost a coalescing of all the stuff we've talked about Microsoft, about these services throughout the course of this podcast, right? Like, if we do believe that, you know, all this stuff, that they're basically, the next console will have backwards compatibility day one, right? Which is sort of the assumption that we have right now. All these Game Pass games suddenly are their day one too, right?
They carry that with you, right?
They carry it with you.
And actually, I wonder with the, like, okay, you know, they do the, you know, right now a very popular model for phones, right, is you paid off in a 2-year contract, right? And then in 2 years, you upgrade, right? I almost wonder if Xbox kind of wants to position themselves in that same way where, like, even after you pay off the console, it's like, hey, well, you know, upgrade to the next Xbox, you know? Or whatever. I wonder if that's something they're also interested in. Yeah.
Because we talked about with the Scarlet, the streaming idea too, the little, like, the streaming box. That, like, if you have the Game Pass, you have this, and the console itself costs $250 at launch, right? Because it'll be cheaper than the bigger boy. Then you can do this day one for a new system, right? Like, and sort of like you said, maybe you keep stepping up as time goes on. So there's just a lot that could happen with this. I think it's crazy, to be honest. And so
I think it's just something to be said, you know, like, more options for people who can't necessarily afford these kind of things, right? It's just a good thing all around, I feel.
Yeah.
It is a good thing. I mean, Nintendo's found success in it with, like, their console or their handheld lines.
Yeah. Right. Which is why we see the 3DS doing so well, right? In this day and age.
Yeah.
I don't know, like, I think it's just a good thing for these companies to have these options, you know, because I know, like, there's the cynics out there who see this kind of news and, like, oh, well, Microsoft just wants you to, like, stick with them forever, blah blah blah. Okay, but if it's letting people get on this for a lower price, like literally it's $0 down, right? Like, you just you just do the contract with $22 a month. That's very good.
And even for hardcore gamers who, like, you know, up until 5 months ago, I had a PS4 and a Switch, did not have an Xbox One. But there was exclusives that I wanted to play. Even for me, a guy like me who has more expendable game income, like, there's a situation where you know, get the Xbox for 2 months, play all the exclusives that you want to play, and then you can give it back, right? Like, it's not a contract, like you said. Like, you're not beholden to paying this off. And so I think that's cool. I think that's crazy.
I think suddenly it's more viable to also, because, you know, usually people have one or the other when it comes to PlayStation and Xbox, right? But suddenly now Xbox is also viable as a second or third console in your home, right? Because it's like, you know, it's cheap enough. Why not?
Yeah. So I mean, interesting stuff. We'll see.
Yeah, I mean, if you think about it, right? Like, let's say, because all their first-party outings are coming straight to Game Pass. You know, if you think, well, I really want to play Gears 5, but I don't have an Xbox One. guess what? You don't even have to pay full price for Gears 5 to be able to play that game.
Yeah. You're getting the console and the game
insane.
for a third the price.
You don't even need the console. If you don't have the console, you could pay $22 and play that game.
Yeah.
Day of release if you wanted to. That is insane.
So, I mean, like,
Great.
you know, maybe there'll be some secret catch, but right now this just looks like a cool new thing that they're trying, and we'll see how it goes. But I'm interested in keeping track of this in the coming months. But that is sort of the news for the week. We've done it. We've went all over Gamescom. We took a brief trip to Europe, back to Seattle to visit Microsoft, and now we're making a trip to the deepest, darkest parts of our own minds when we take a look at the list.
Yep.
Last week, of course, as we've already discussed on this podcast, a contentious edition. Fire Emblem Awakening came in just under the Valkyria Chronicles Remastered on the list this week. Brandon, you're the boy bringing it to the table.
It's me. It's not DDP. It's Brandon, and I'm here to pick a game for the list. So I decided this week. I can't remember if I did mention it actually last week. When we were arguing, we were having the big old fun time. Somebody mentioned something about, I was making the case for gameplay to me is the most important thing when ranking this list. I rank that above almost everything else. So here's something that I want to do to test myself, to test my own convictions.
Oh.
All right.
Oh no!
I'm gonna put in. Somebody said, "Oh, well, Phoenix Wright's very high on the list, Brandon." And that game doesn't really have barely any gameplay at all. And I said, well, I'd put a little bit lower than where it is, but I had a test. So I'm gonna test my own convictions with one of my favorite games of all time. Although it doesn't have the greatest gameplay, and that game is Trigger Happy Havoc.
I knew it.
Danganronpa.
I knew it.
As soon as you said one of my favorite games of all time, I was like, I know where this is going. Okay.
All right. Here we are. Trigger Happy Havoc, Danganronpa.
Danganronpa. This game, if you don't know anything about it, it's a visual novel. Not graphic novel, visual novel.
Yeah.
It is pretty graphic.
Yeah, it is graphic. It's a mature visual novel. It's about murder, teenagers murdering each other. A bunch of kids trapped in a school, and the only way out is to murder another student and get away with it. Mm-hmm. Whenever somebody dies, a class trial is held, and if you all, vote as a group and get the right, and choose the right, the actual killer, then the killer dies. But if the killer gets away with it, the killer gets to leave scot-free. And that's the only way out of this school.
And everybody else dies.
And everybody else will die.
Yeah.
So really only one person can survive.
So who is the person
unless everyone can survive if you just decide, it's okay, I want to live in this school forever. That option is presented to you.
Mm-hmm.
So Brandon, you keep saying these rules. Who is enforcing these rules?
These rules are enforced by a little teddy bear named Monokuma.
Oh.
a little robot teddy bear, half black, half white. The black side he's got a crazy eyeball. So one side looks cute and cuddly, the other side looks like he's ready to murder you. And Monokuma's a character, man. He's crazy. He goes from acting like he can be your best friend to acting like he would kill you at the drop of a hat.
He's a fun-loving guy. Monokuma's having a good time. No one else is.
That's a good way to describe him, actually.
He loves murder, and if nobody's murdering each other, he does get a little bit bored, and he tries to force it. He's always giving you guys motives. All the characters you play as. Oh shit! I can't even remember his name.
Makoto Naegi.
Makoto. Yes, Naegi, Makoto Naegi. So you play as him. He's a very protagonist-looking protagonist.
Yeah, I guess this is not like a normal high school.
No. So they chose all the most popular kids, or not most popular, but all these kids have a special talent. This high school is a place where only gifted children can go, and each kid is specifically the best at one thing. You have,
some of them, some of them less than others.
Yeah, some of them have talents that you're like, oh, is that really a talent?
But you know what? They're the most talented at that thing compared to anyone else.
Naegi himself, the main character, has no specific talents. Every year they hold a lottery and they choose one person, and they're the ultimate lucky student because they just got chosen to go to this high school that only gifted children can go to. So he was the lucky child who got wrapped up in this murderous game. And I don't want to get too into it because I want, if you're interested in playing this game, I highly recommend it. It is fantastic. Very fun. The story is great. There's lots of twists and turns, ups and downs. The music, the visuals. It's a blast. And I love this game. I love the setting. I love the story. I enjoyed every second of it. I played it on the PlayStation Vita. Rest in peace, that. It's been re-released on PS4. So you can pick it up and
PC.
Yeah, and PC. So, it's been released in a collection, too. 1 and 2 reloaded. So, and there's 3 of them out now. There's 3 games, and there's a spin-off game. So, Danganronpa, man, it's a cool series. There's some animes and everything. They even made an anime based off of the first...
Don't watch the anime.
Don't watch the anime.
Don't watch the anime. But
the game's good.
Anyway, the game's good. The story's great. The world is really awesome, and I love it so much. But the thing is, the gameplay... is a visual novel, so there's lots of talking. It's a little bit more interactive than even, I guess, Phoenix Wright would be, because there is first-person segments where you get to walk around and interact with, the environment. I know you get to do that a little bit in the investigation stuff in Phoenix Wright, but it's really just switching screens back and forth. It's not in this game. You actually get to walk around and explore the school, and after each chapter, more of the school is opened up for you to walk around in. And the school is it's a very cool location. It's got all the different, it's got the gym, the pool, and all the different areas. But it's very sadistic. Everything is kind of it goes from dark and gloomy to neon and bright, like from different room to different room. And I don't know, there's a lot, like, in the class trial specifically, there's different choices. Kind of like where Phoenix Wright goes, where there's the trials and you have to find, like, contradictions in what people say and stuff like that. There's kind of like that, but you get their lines kind of, like, blurted on the screen, and you have a crosshair. This is where I guess Trigger Happy Havoc comes from, right? Because you shoot truth bullets at inconsistencies and things that people say to break down, their whatever, their I guess side of the story. If you find something wrong with another piece of evidence,
their alibis
earlier on, and there's different mini games that take place in that. Some are better than others, but it's a lot more interaction than your typical
visual novel.
Visual novel. There's a lot more because I played visual novels where, dude, all it is a fucking. That's all you get.
Yeah,
Sometimes
you just read
get
it. It's a novel.
No.
It's just a novel.
It's literally a novel.
Yeah, there's a lot more game to Danganronpa.
Yes, there is a lot more game than Danganronpa.
And there's also a thing I like about Danganronpa is that, like, because like you said, a lot of visual novels, like, you're not even, like, given the chance to, like, do anything but stay on the path. In Danganronpa, there is free time, and that's what it's called, all right? And it just gives you a chance to interact with the characters outside of the context of the story. As you could probably guess from the premise that there's a lot of murder, not every single character makes it through the story. So I think having those free times really makes the moments where either, a body is found or the murderer is found matter that much more, right? Because it might,
especially if you've been investigating, if you're taking your free time to really get to know a specific character and then they die, you almost feel like you were connected to that character, you know? And it's
a good way to give stakes to you personally with the characters you like, right? Or like even when a character you like commits murder, you're like, why'd you have to do it? Why couldn't it have been the other guy who I don't like?
Because in free time, it represents, in the free time, all these characters are shown like, they're normal kids. You don't really get to see the sadistic side behind them. So when they do pull that off, you're like, wow, I can't believe they were driven to do this. I was getting to know this person. I can't believe it, But then it's also good writing, because at the same time, you can say, after you really learn it, you're like, okay, I can't, sometimes I can, I can kind of see where they're coming from. I sympathize with the murderer almost, Yeah.
I mean, they're in a situation where none of these people would be committing murder otherwise, But it's the test of the people when you're in the bad situation that is a lot of the game, right? Because that also has a thing to do with despair, which is in the story of the game. But what a person
hope
does
versus despair is the main thing of that game. But yeah, there's just, man, you get to know these characters, and a lot of these characters, there's very good writing, very good character development. There's times where you get honestly emotionally, invested in the actual, the murders themselves, or who did the murdering. I found myself throughout the series, being actually fucking upset about, the stuff that went down.
So we said a lot of things that you love a whole lot about this game, but where would you put it, Brandon?
Yeah. Where would I put it? That's tough. See, I love this game. I said a lot of good things about it.
May I make a recommendation, if you can't think of one?
Well, I'm gonna, you know what? I can think of one. I'm just gonna start here, and we're gonna work our way around. All right.
All right.
And I'm just gonna, you know what? Fuck it. I'm just gonna say it. I think this game's better than the first Phoenix Wright. So I'm just gonna put it right above the first Phoenix Wright, and that's where my starting point is. I think this game is better than the first Phoenix Wright game. I think the Phoenix Wright, honestly, I thought it was high, a little bit higher than it should be. I thought Phoenix Wright got better as the series went on. I was surprised we put it as high as we did.
Phoenix Wright was another early edition, so I
don't know. Besides it being early, I honestly think Phoenix Wright, which I think Danganronpa,
one of the better ones.
To be fair, Danganronpa 1 also does this really well, but I think Phoenix Wright, compared to the rest of the series, stands out in that it's a pretty self-contained story, but amazing all the way through, which I can't really say. Ace Attorney 3, we say we would rank higher, right? But I feel like it's extremely dependent on playing the other games, whereas Ace Attorney, I don't know, the Phoenix Wright, it's very self-contained but fantastic all the way through. And Ace Attorney is honestly one of the best visual novels I played. It has a fantastic story, fantastic characters.
Oh, it is. It is definitely one of the best visual novels I played. I played real bad visual novels.
It's hard.
The Phoenix Wright series is Phoenix Wright, Danganronpa. If somebody said, "What's your favorite visual novel series?" Boom, boom, 1-2 punch. Those are the best ones.
It's hard, yeah, right? Because those two are, I think, pretty similar in quality, But I think Danganronpa, more than Ace Attorney, I think if your problem with Ace Attorney is it's too high because its sequels are better, I feel like Danganronpa is that in strides, because Danganronpa 1 is a fantastic game, I love it, but I think general consensus is 2 and V3 are just the pinnacles of the franchise, right? So
I'm not one to play in to sort of go into the other games in the series are put higher or lower.
I'm usually not, but I think because that gets brought up with Phoenix Wright so much whenever we do talk about it, I think it's worth to be said about Danganronpa. That
I don't know. I mean, I would say that comparing Phoenix Wright 1 to Danganronpa 1, I would put Danganronpa 1 above it. And a couple of reasons. The first is, like Brandon said, I think the actual parts where you play the game of discovering evidence, all the things like that, is more fun in Danganronpa. I enjoyed it more than in Phoenix Wright, where there's a lot of, it's okay to be honest, and you'll say a lot of scrolling around, poking at a thing, what is this, right? And sort of...
It's an adventure game.
Yeah, it's an adventure game, and that's fine, but there are moments where you're sort of the Phoenix Wright, especially, it's in the first game. It gets a little bit, in some games it gets worse later on in the series, but there are moments where you genuinely are game, what do you want me to do? like when you're cross-referencing people and you're like, which specific thing should I press on? Like, why was it that one and not the thing that came before? Why did this evidence trigger this man and not this? Danganronpa, I feel like I didn't encounter that as much. I feel like when the like surprises were supposed to happen in Danganronpa, or the moments where I was supposed to be lost, it was supposed to be somewhat in the narrative, right? Like, the mystery is genuinely like, this part is perplexing to all the characters. They don't get it who was committed the murder. And I think that just like, I think the Phoenix Wright cast is really good. I think that like, as you look at Phoenix Wright, like a lot of those characters that get introduced come up later in the series. But I think that as a sheer ensemble cast, Danganronpa, I think I prefer that cast in that first game more than the cast of Phoenix Wright 1. I think that also just the aesthetic of Danganronpa is like so unique to what it is. Like from the first game, it had what its identity like defined in a very clear way that I think helped it a lot. That I think Phoenix Wright would have found a little bit later on in its life. Mm-hmm. But that's what I would.
I mean, I'm not opposed to putting it above Phoenix Wright, but because I like. The amount I like these games are extremely similar, you know, like
they're extremely close.
Like it's very hard for me to pick between one or the other, but I do think I lean Phoenix Wright. Like for example, like I do think the individual episodes in Phoenix Wright, I think I prefer overall. You know, I like that. And even like I think the overarching story of the first game, right? I think the way Phoenix Wright ends to me is extremely satisfying. Whereas with Danganronpa, there was a lot of still open ends to it. You know, it was like, I mean, they had. I don't want to get into spoilers, but
a little bit. But I think it left the mystery for. You know, I think Danganronpa 1's ending, without spoiling it, it had just the right amount of satisfaction, but also mystery leading.
But see, I disagree. I think the ending with Danganronpa, like, especially the big bad reveal, it was just kind of like, I don't know if they really did a good job.
I would say that about 2, but I wouldn't say that about 1.
See, the funny thing about what I was going to say is part of the reason that like I would think I would put Danganronpa above Phoenix Wright is I think that the big bad is so good in Danganronpa. I think that like both Monokuma and like, you know that Monokuma is like being controlled by someone the person who is controlling Monokuma like are genuinely up there in terms of like video game characters that I loathe. Like you get just such a genuine hatred for that villain that eventually beating them, to me, like there's build up in Phoenix Wright too, but like I think that
I don't know, like that. Like,
really
because the original ending of Phoenix Wright is the 4th case, right? Not the like the 5th case is kind of a bonus. I think defeating that villain in Phoenix Wright just felt so good to me, you know. Whereas with Danganronpa, I feel like there was thinking back to that final case, right? Thinking back to all the reveals they had made, it kind of felt like, you know, there was a lot of like overarching stuff they would say, but like it feels like they didn't really think through what they're saying, you know what I mean? And it's like it didn't really make sense, and I had kind of felt that way when I finished the game, and then this is not fair to the game, but I feel like I'm emboldened in that claim when you see how that story wraps up. You can tell, okay, yeah, no, they really did not think any of this through, you know? It's a whole bunch of nonsense.
Things, right? Well, I don't think it is. I don't know. I mean, I think it is, but I think it's...
With that being said, I will say, I think the highs of the series for Phoenix Wright as a series high is higher than the series high from Danganronpa.
Sure, but I guess the issue would be we're not comparing the series, right?
As a game.
Yeah.
Is better than Phoenix Wright 1.
Because I would also say the Danganronpa 1, like if we're looking at the format, because both of these have very similar formats, right? Discovering who was the murderer. I would say that like Danganronpa 1, especially in some of its later cases, gets subversive in a way that it took Phoenix Wright like 3 games to sort of get to, right? Like in Phoenix Wright, a lot of the things are very much like, okay, we know this person's in the clear, we know this person, and we're just trying to find the person who did it, right? Like be extremely vague on spoilers, but Danganronpa does really good stuff with like playing on who is the suspect, who is the person that got killed, and what the interactions are between them, the rest of the class. Like there's just a lot of really good stuff that happens there that I think makes the overall
I think I agree. I mean, I think a lot of the cases, it's hard to figure out who you think is the murderer, you know, and Danganronpa for like almost like 3/4 of the trial, right? And then obviously it starts getting a little bit, you know, more obvious towards the end. But like with Phoenix Wright, you know, especially the first one, I feel it's obvious as hell who it is. It's just you have to get there.
And because you do know,
it
makes the frustrations of like, how do I progress more frustrating.
Well,
for
then
me,
I would think. If we're going to talk about like getting to the point where we figure out who the bad guy in each case is, I think Danganronpa suffered heavily from the side characters kind of figuring everything out for you. You know, there were so many instances where the two main side characters in Danganronpa like basically flat out reveal the case to you. You know, and that was kind of annoying. You know, like in almost
they're there as a plot device to help you.
Yeah, but
but also in Phoenix Wright, in the first 3 cases, you literally have a person that's guiding you the entire way, right?
You also have a guide in Phoenix Wright as well.
I don't know. I felt it was more annoying in Danganronpa, where it was like I
felt like it was less annoying. I don't know. It seemed more natural, like because to me it seemed like they were on your side, you know, just trying to help you out because you're both stuck in the same situation.
I mean, I like that they played with that.
If you're in a court scenario, you're not going to have a 13-year-old girl standing right next to you, whispering.
Well, Maya never figured out anything for you.
Well,
I mean, she probably did as much as the other characters, right? I think it's fair to have the side character guide you along a little bit because otherwise. Just to avoid the moments of confusion, but like
it gave you hints on like how to figure out who the murderer is, but not really flat out say it.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I mean, if you guys are dead set on putting Danganronpa like above it, I'm fine with that. I just think that just my 2 cents.
I wouldn't put it any higher. But
right.
That's where
I mean, it's either number 8. I mean, not number 8. It's either number 9 or number 10. You know, like it's, and I'm fine with either slot. But like, yeah, if you guys are dead set on putting it above, like, I'm okay with that. I can settle there.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right. Okay. We did.
So we did it.
Fair enough.
Number 9.
So. Oh.
No,
don't even ask where I want to put it.
I felt bad that no one was just.
You hadn't spoken, so I just thought you weren't going.
I know.
What do you want?
It's fine. No,
now I want.
Where did you want it for the record? For the record.
I wanted to put it below, but you guys came up with good arguments, so I'm kind of torn. So if Muzz is gonna go with above, then
I mean, I was only because I thought if this was a lost case, but we.
No, it's not like that was the area I was looking for.
Mm-hmm.
But I still.
I mean, no. Tell us why Phoenix Wright is so good.
I don't know. It's just. Personally, I enjoyed Phoenix Wright more than Danganronpa. I felt the only problem I had with Danganronpa itself was that the progression, like getting from case to case, like yes, the free time was a nice way of like interacting with characters, getting to know them better, but like the conversations in general and like for events to happen seemed to drag on a little bit too much for my liking. Like it was a bit too much conversation going on.
Also, to be fair, you could skip this free time.
I know,
yeah, but
that's
speaking as someone
the thing is, like, the free time is the part that you want to do. It's like the part you want to
build up
the characters.
To it. Yeah, I get it. I mean, it's hard. Like, you want to make it feel like the characters aren't just like murdering immediately as soon as the last one's done. You know, like
but no, that would be too fast. But like, you need some sort of like space. But the pacing was a bit too sluggish.
Whereas Phoenix Wright, I think the pacing is perfect. Like,
but I would say that
for the first game
factor.
See, I get to the point in both games, honestly, in Danganronpa and Phoenix Wright. I got to a weird point in both of these games where I'd be playing let's say a trial, whether it was Phoenix Wright or Danganronpa, where I'd go, man, I miss the investigation parts. I just can't wait till this trial's over. And I had those same thoughts in both games. And then, you get to the investigation parts and you're like, ugh. Okay, I'm tired of this fucking investigation shit. I can't wait till another trial. Like, I feel like both games kind of dragged on in each area where, like, I literally had the same thought in both games.
I mean, I can't really speak to the pacing for either game, though.
Right, I had it for, like, maybe the 2 last cases, but with Danganronpa, it was, like, straight from the beginning for me.
to me, and I think this sort of like ties into a larger thing of why I prefer Danganronpa. Like, I thought there was more tension in that moment because I was wondering which character was going to die next, right? And I think that in a game that's about solving a murder, I think the fact that like I care more about the murderers and the murderees, I don't know if that's a word, in Danganronpa is partially what elevates it. Like that, you know, like there's like one or two deaths that happen, and one really in Phoenix Wright where like the person that gets murdered, you're like, oh man, this sucks.
It's a personal
effect. But I think that like because you're able to build relationships with people that are also that will be continuing throughout the entire rest of the story, and may eventually become a murderer or be murdered, I think that I cared more overall.
Well, I don't know, because with Danganronpa, like everyone after chapter 2, I was like, I hate all of these characters. I don't give a shit whether they just me personally. Just everyone who died after a certain point, I was just like I don't care about these people. And to be honest, like the remaining cast at the end of the game kind of sucks.
How dare you? How dare
you not care about Sakura? Fuck you.
Spoilers, but the people who survive.
It's time. The gloves are off.
Actually, I feel like it is worth noting because we're talking about like how much we like the characters in Danganronpa. Outside of the main trio, the people who survive in Danganronpa are kind of one note. You know,
that is bullshit.
they are like you know.
Donuts, Muzamil.
I know you love her, Brandon, but like,
that is bullshit.
They're just there.
My favorite character in that
This
series.
is not a personal attack on Brandon. I don't know. But like Phoenix Wright has the main three too, right? Like it has Phoenix, Maya, and Edgeworth, and like so they're the ones you are really invested
and Gumshoe.
in. Gumshoe becomes bigger as the series goes on.
Like
he matters more as the series goes on, but
he doesn't matter much in the first game, but he does matter more.
But so I think that like that's fine, and I think.
But even the main trio, like look, okay, so you have X amount of characters left, right? All but 3 suck. Then one of them is just a giant dickhead.
How dare you? He's the main character growth happens though. There's
the main character,
very Edgeworth.
I feel like the main character himself is kind of lame, especially when you compare him to Phoenix Wright, who is a fantastic character. Makoto is just
Sure, I can say Phoenix is definitely a better character than Makoto.
But I would also say that that's like that while that is Phoenix is more the center point of his game than Makoto is, so it's fine that Makoto isn't as engaging. Like the game is not called Makoto Nagi Trigger Happy Havoc.
But
you know?
No, but that's what I'm saying though. So you have
Makoto has a better supporting cast.
Yeah, I would say he has a better.
But I don't agree because I think I really think a lot of the Danganronpa cast is way more one note than you guys are making them seem. Like
there's only one shitty Danganronpa character in the first game.
Yeah, and even if they are,
I'm not saying they're shitty characters. I just think they're extremely flat. You know, like they.
Haifu.
Hold on, there's a lady named Old Bag, and her gimmick is that she's old.
Old Bag is amazing.
I think it's. I don't know.
Okay, here's the thing. I can honestly say I like Phoenix Wright and Miles Edgeworth more than the entirety of the Danganronpa 1 cast. I think the cast of Danganronpa... I think the cast of Danganronpa 2 and 3 are a lot better in that regard, but when it comes to Danganronpa 1, the cast... I don't know, like I feel like they're not as nearly as worth the praise as you're giving them.
Haifumi's the only real bad one.
I think they were undercutting Monokuma, who like is a really good...
Okay, Monokuma, yes. Monokuma is a fantastic character. I will give you that. But, I don't know. Like, it's I feel like it's hard to top... Especially, and I think in the first game especially, like, Phoenix Wright and Miles Edgeworth, and even Maya and the main villain. Like, those guys are...
That girl or hamburger. She just wants her hamburger.
Their whole dynamic doesn't really escalate until the third one is where it gets, like, I don't know.
I don't know.
I don't know, because I mean, like when the last chapter, it all turns on, but it does not turn on until then. You know, like you get like, Miles and Phoenix are bitchy ex-boyfriends. You know, like they got that going on, but like you don't quite get like.
No, but was hints of that, like, until obviously, like, it was everything about Phoenix and Miles' story pops off in the last case, right? And I think that was extremely well. I don't know, like, the story of Phoenix and Miles, I think, was extremely well done. I don't know. I just.
We cannot do it. We're doing it again.
To the people on Twitter.
We cannot keep.
Why did Saf have to fall asleep? God damn
Saf, wake up. Okay. Well,
I don't know. Like, now. I'm honestly conflicted.
I can't wait for the inevitable Danganronpa 3 versus Ace Attorney 3 argument that's going to happen 2 years from now. It's going to be the exact same thing.
No, I already said I think the highs of Phoenix Wright is
I don't know. I'm willing to make a case for. By the way, Danganronpa 3's ending.
I'll listen to you.
It's one of the greats. Oh my god.
Danganronpa 3's ending is just what the fuck.
It is transcendental in the medium of video games. But
yeah.
That's a lot of big words to say that I like it a lot. But you know what?
I don't know, like, I'm willing to settle if we have to. I don't feel good about it.
Muzamil, do you want to settle this? I was going to say, do you want to do a coin flip?
The sanctity of
can have you ruined. No, because I'm also where Moose is the problem. So it's hard.
Because they are extremely close. Like, it hurts
you can't
to put
really
one above the other.
Like, this is the best comparison games you can ever have. Like,
yeah, because they're so freaking similar. Like, if we thought Final Awakening,
the actual core gameplay of Danganronpa, like, is more.
I mean, I'll give you that it's more engaging, but it's nothing to write home about. Like,
and I think I'm trying to think back to Phoenix Wright, which I replayed 4 years ago, and Danganronpa, which I played around a similar time. I remember more of Danganronpa than I do of Phoenix Wright. I remember a lot of like the second and third, like, not this. The first case is like my brain trying to remember all of Phoenix Wright. I remember slightly less of it than I do Danganronpa, so I think the Danganronpa stuck with me more. And like the fact that I can remember the names of like most of Danganronpa's cast when they're all deeply Japanese names that I don't encounter a lot, I think is probably telling for like that it stuck with me more.
Well, see, and it's the opposite for me. I remember their gimmicks, you know, and that's because their character was all about their gimmicks, you know. Like, I don't know, like.
Well, I mean, that's true of also Phoenix Wright, though.
Sure, but I mean, but like, if we're comparing the main cast, though, I don't know, like.
I like Yuri a lot.
I guess the biggest thing is you could compare like Monokuma, right? Like, I think Monokuma is up there, right? Versus
I think that they have the Danganronpa has a better villain. When you combine Monokuma with the Mastermind as basically the same entity.
I felt better taking down the big bad of Phoenix Wright. You know, like, I felt a moment.
That's interesting.
And also, I think it's worth noting, like, in that last case, I think, honestly, the last case of Phoenix Wright does such a good job of just, you know, playing with your emotions and honestly almost feeling like actual defeat for a second, you know? Like, I feel like you should know the moment I'm talking about, but...
I just want to say I felt better taking down a person who brought down the fucking civilization.
But see, no, it was way more personal with Phoenix Wright. Yeah. You know, it was like,
I don't know. I was
locked into a school for like fucking months on end with a bunch of my friends who were killing each other.
I didn't feel good. I think that's the thing with Danganronpa is like I feel like it should have felt better taking it down, but it really felt so impersonal somehow. Even though they directly caused what's happening to me, you know, they directly caused these students to kill each other, and yet it didn't feel as personal taking them down.
See, to me, I put myself into Makoto's shoes. I was Makoto. And with him not having as much of a personality, you know, I put myself in those shoes because I was playing as him, which I think was good. I think maybe they did that on purpose because I was, to me, I was Makoto. I
don't know. I much prefer Danganronpa 2 and 3 where the main characters, you know, stand out much more. Makoto is really just kind of... He's
really good.
Makoto's extremely bland. Like, let's be honest with ourselves.
Yeah, but like,
he's a nice boy.
Why do you hate the nice boy? I was Makoto.
Like, even then, like, he doesn't even, like... when he's feeling panicked or whatever, like I never felt like down, you know, like I never felt defeated with Makoto. I never felt
weird. It's weird because Danganronpa 2 and 3 are almost subversions of Danganronpa 1. You know, like they're almost like Danganronpa 3 especially is just like sort of being like, look at all the weird things we did in Danganronpa 1. But like I still think Danganronpa 1's really good.
It is.
I do too. I just think
but
No, they're both like fucking amazing games.
But
it's just
I
hard
will
to
say, you know what's really good in Phoenix Wright? When a character cracks.
Yes.
Oh yeah.
Oh yes. You know, I think,
and I think in that way, in that moment of seeing a character crack, it does give you just a little bit of boost.
right.
So I mean, I'm cool with acquiescence.
Cracking.
There is, but like
also characters cracking in Danganronpa.
Yeah, but it's not. I don't, like
it happens more in the second and third game. Sure.
Yeah.
Like there's some character cracks that you're like. Oh.
but it feels good in Ace Attorney. You know what I mean?
In Ace Attorney, when the final guy cracks, I get it. I get where Moose is coming from.
It feels good because you're taking down a bad guy.
Well, no, but like specifically, like when you see the crash start to happen,
serial killer.
No, but it's. Yeah,
they do a really good job of like you see it for a second and then they gather themselves back together and then like it lasts a little bit longer and then they're like,
yeah, it's like okay now I know how to get you, you fucker. That's like the feeling you get.
And then when it falls apart and they're just like panicked and they're falling apart in front of everyone, you're like, oh, this is very good.
I guess especially of that final villain, you know, because I don't know, like taking down the final villain, Danganronpa, it really didn't feel like you.
That argument to me is dead air. I mean, honestly, that's like a personal thing.
Yeah, I guess.
I know this is all our personal opinion, but like that to me, because I had a completely different.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. It's
down
like
the final boss of Danganronpa.
It's like with never mind. Spoiler territory there.
I mean, I would say as my final appeal for Danganronpa, I think the actual structure of Danganronpa is better. At its core, right? We have a lot of arguments about characters, and characters make up so much of these stories, and that should not be disregarded. But that just, I think, while it was refined later on, Danganronpa built upon, a lot of the tropes that Phoenix Wright also set forth, but I think that it improved upon them in ways, right? I think that, like, the health system in Danganronpa, much better than it is in Phoenix Wright. I think
the core progression of Danganronpa, this is in favor of Danganronpa. I think just going from investigation to trial is much better in Phoenix Wright that likes to split it up a bit, where it's like, you know, investigation, trial, then you do a little more investigation, then you do the second day of the trial, then you do a little more investigation, and then finally you finish off the trial. I think that kind of drags on you, right? I think the constant the constant back and forth between those, like, I don't think it works well because the investigation never truly feels except, like, you know, I think they do some good moments in certain parts of the game where, like, you're getting close to cracking the case during the investigation and then something happens to you, you know?
Yeah.
But just that core thing of it drags. It really does, going back and forth, back and forth, back and forth.
And I think that, like, because you can screw up more in the investigation parts of Danganronpa, like, there are times that you can miss evidence, right? And it makes it harder on yourself. Like, you can have more or less evidence to work with. With Phoenix Wright, there's never a moment that it will not progress into the trial until you have all the things you need, right? And so I think that's why a lot of times I felt the sort of checklist nature of the investigations is because it's like there's no time limit, there's no, like, real execution here that's going on besides just getting, like, checking the proper things to have my list of 5 items to run against the witness that we're gonna see. And they get to that later on. They have more of the variety of, like, your investigation with Phoenix Wright, but especially in 1, where they don't have the Cyclops or anything else. It's just that.
And 1 doesn't have. Did they add it in the first one where it had in the DS one where it had 3D stuff, or they didn't add that till the last case, right?
That was the last case. You could look around the object. But.
Yeah.
So I mean, that's sort of my final call, but. I don't know. So what's
I'm willing to settle, but I don't know. I'm telling you, I don't feel good about it. So you make the call, William. What are we doing?
I'm gonna stick with it above it.
Okay. All right.
I'm sorry. You put in a lot of good effort here. Phoenix Wright's very good.
All right.
Phoenix Wright.
Oh boy, there we go. We did it.
And God help us all when we put 999 on this.
With spoilers, it's getting just around there in that.
This is where the visual novels live. So there we go. Let's do surrounding it. Number 6, Super Smash Bros. Melee. Number 7, Castlevania Symphony of the Night. Number 8, Octopath Traveler. Number 9, Danganronpa. Trigger Happy Havoc. And number 10, rounding out the top 10, Phoenix Wright, Ace Attorney. Left 4 Dead 2 knocked down to number 11. That is the list.
You just have to point that out.
Sorry, I hate it. Sorry for you. That's the list. That's the podcast for this week. We went long, so we'll run through this fast. We're back on the Twitch channel. We're streaming semi-regularly, and by we I mean Brandon and Noah and Saf, because they're carrying the load for us there. Brandon's been playing the Game Club game, which is Zack and Wiki Quest for Barbarossa's Treasure.
Baby. Barbaros.
And he's played through a lot of it on stream, so if you want to see that game, check that out.
Well, it's too late now. We're recording the episode tomorrow.
Oh, it's true. Well, no, but the stream will be up. You can archive.
The stream's still up, so yeah, if you want to
check out the archive.
Yeah.
And then also Saf and Noah are continuing their quest for Terraria. To build a treehouse, maybe get married, some other stuff along the way, fight the bosses. And then the co-op club still happens on Mondays.
It has
semi-regular basis, not constantly, but
Brandon last Monday was Brandon Wednesday.
The rare Wednesday on Monday, a real treat. But you can find out when we're going live on Twitch on our Twitter, twitter.com/jumpupsupercast, our Twitch channels, twitch.com/jumpupsupercast. Those are sort of the two big stops that you need to hit to know what we're doing, because we'll also tweet when our podcasts go live. Look forward to the Game Club later this week, like we mentioned. Thursday, Zack and Wiki, Quest for Barbarossa's Treasure. Noah, we disrespected you earlier in the list portion. So as penance, I want to offer the last word.
Shit, I was not prepared for this.
I'm always prepared for this.
Moosey has, like, while you're thinking on that, Noah, it is upsetting how much Moose has. That's just, he loves getting the spiteful last word. It's what he lives for. That's why he's on this podcast.
And it's not like, it's just a laundry list.
I'll pass over the baton to you then.
Why would you do this?
Don't do that. That's not good.
So, no, actually, don't worry. I'm not gonna. I actually have a good one today. But you see, with my thing with the final word, right, or is that I have a laundry list of things in general that I want people to know is fact. Okay, there's also throughout the podcast we'll talk about things, and like it'll just stick in my head like, no, this isn't right, you know. And so like I'll feel the need to mention that at the end. But today, actually, it's a little more so. Danganronpa and Phoenix Wright are incredible games. They truly are. It breaks my heart to have to compare these two games, because I just love them so much. For the love of God, if you haven't, play them, because they are a treat. I promise you will have a blast with both. So go out and play them right now if you haven't. Bye.